A warm welcome to one and all present here. Today, let us see about the next topic of Unit 1, that is identity theft and identity fraud. So, the main objective of this session is to differentiate between identity theft and identity fraud, and then to learn the typologies of identity theft and identity fraud, then to understand the various physical methods of identity theft. So these are the three main objectives of this session. Let us move to introduction to identity theft and identity fraud. So what is identity theft? From the term itself, we can able to identify what is that identity. So what is the identity of ourselves? For each and every human being, their name, their date of birth, their personal identification number, their Aadhaar number, everything we can say it as identity. So stealing of those things are called as identity theft. That is, describes any use of stolen personal information. That is called as identity theft. So it is the crime of obtaining the personal or else financial information. So personal information is this. Financial information means their bank passbook, their ATM card, like that, passport. So that is called as financial information of another person to use their identity to commit fraud. To commit fraud. Then there are four types of identity theft are there. One is medical, next is criminal, financial, and child. So these are the four types of identity theft. So stealing of personal information and financial information of one person for doing some criminal activity is called as identity theft. So next is identity fraud. So what is identity fraud? It is nothing. In identity theft, they have stole the information of a person. So by using that information, they are doing some fraud activities called as identity fraud. It is a use by one person of another person's personal information without the authorization of that person to commit a crime or to deceive or defraud that person is called as identity fraud. The information including names, addresses, date of birth, social security numbers, taxpayer identification numbers, passport number, historical information, and biometric information. So these information are used as a fraud activity. So this is just a difference between identity theft and identity fraud. Theft means stealing somebody's identity data. Fraud means using the data to do some fraud activities like account opening, like that. So what are all the information that can be stolen means bank accounts, passports, birth certificates, social security, credit cards, debit cards, cell phones, driver licenses. So in identity fraud, they will use that data to open bank accounts, to make passports, to use social security numbers, to clone the bank cards, to clone cell phones, to make fake driver licenses. So this is about introduction to identity theft and identity fraud. Next is typologies of identity theft and identity fraud. First one is assumption of identity. What is that assumption of identity? When an individual simply assumes the identity of his or her victim, including all aspects of the victim's life. For example, in most of the films and serials, you have seen those activities. They will get a small card, small letter, or small or there is a childhood dress, like that. And what that person will do means he will assume as that person and he will act in the family, like that. You have seen lot of movies, in that movies. So that is what called as assumption of identity. A thief could identically duplicate the physical characters and appearance of his target. So he will fix a target person, and the target, like the target person, he will change his physical characteristics, he will change his appearance, like that, everything. In most of the films, double duplicate, that is a double role actors will do the same process. So that is called as assumption of identity. Second typology is theft for employment and or border entry. So what is the theft for employment? For the purpose of employment purpose, they will steal the certificate of another person. and he will just change the name and he will use it as. I think in film Nanban, the same thing will happen. So the actor hero's name is used by the director S.J. Surya. So that is called as theft for employment. That is not theft. So he will just assume. So with the willingness of the actor, he has bought it. If it is stolen, then that is called as theft for employment and or border entry. So to cross the other countries, they will steal the visa, passport, documents, citizens document like that, and they will use it. So that is called as theft for employment and or border entry. And the third typology is criminal record identity theft or fraud. Criminal record. So what is it? Criminal record. When a criminal uses a victim's identity not to engage in criminal activity but to seek gainful employment. See here, one criminal, he has to do, in most of the film it will happen. A criminal will do all the criminal activities, but he will not caught. So what he will do means he will create some other person's identity in the situation, that is in the place, and he will left. So while the police or the person investigation persons are coming there, they will get the identity of another person, not the criminal person. So the criminal person will misbehave in this way. So that is the criminal record identity or theft of for that purpose. What they will do means they will steal the spectacles, they will steal the watch of their enemies, and they will put it in the crime scene. So that is called as criminal record identity theft. Next is virtual identity theft or fraud. So it involves use of personal, professional, or other dimensions of identity toward the development of fraudulent virtual personality. So virtual means in the system you can able to know they will do some morphing and they will change the persons in internet and all. That what to say, face is so different, but the body is different. Like that they will do some morphing activities. So that is called as virtual identity theft or fraud. Next is credit identity theft. So they will steal the credit card or debit card like that, personal financial information, and by using that information, they will do some illegal activity. So these are all the typologies of identity theft and identity fraud. So next is prevalence and victimology. What is it prevalence? So the fact it includes the following factors. One is the reason for identity theft and identity fraud, delayed notification or awareness of victimization. So that person is not having any awareness that his identity is theft. Second one, the vested interest of private companies to exploit consumer fear. Yes, the private companies, they are not at all having any interest to report it to the agencies. Third one, the lack of mandatory reporting and inconsistent applications by federal agencies. So this is also there is no such what to say, advertisement to report the identity theft and identity fraud. So there is no some common agencies for that. So people is not aware about where to report. If my mother, if my bank passbook is missed, so I feel what to say. I can apply for duplicate and I can able to get it. That only I can able to do. I can go to the bank and I will inform the bank to block that card and I will apply for new card and I will get the new card. But what I have to do, I'm not filing a case in the agency. So that is the third point. So that identity theft and identity fraud, they are so free. Last one is lack of national standards. There is no proper standard for this in measurement. So next is there are four main sources of information for that where they will get the information means credit reporting agencies. So there are, you all know, we will not give our mobile number to anybody, but we are receiving call from different agencies. For example, for a bank loan, we are not having any account in that particular bank, but that particular bank manager or bank officers are calling us for a loan purpose like that, and for credit card applying, and then for a job. If you are a student, they will call for job opportunities. If they are willing, they will sell some products, like that. We are not giving our phone number to anybody. Similarly, mail id, we are not giving our mail id to anybody, but we will receive more number of mails from different advertising agencies. How it is possible? So they will get the data from different sources. What are the sources means? Credit reporting agencies, software companies, popular and trade media, and government agencies. Next is victims and cost associated with victimization. The same thing. We cannot able to predict how much cost it will be procured if you are if you want to identify the criminal activity. So here the cost is include both the individual person as well as the financial institution. So next is future increases. So this identity theft and identity fraud is increasing day by day more. So the in future it will get increased. So this is about identity theft and identity fraud. So we have seen today what is identity theft, what is identity fraud, what is the difference between identity theft and identity fraud, what are all the typologies used in identity theft, and the last one is prevalence and victimologies. Okay, now let us have an assessment of this. Stealing of one person's personal information is what? And using of personal information of one person by other person as own identity is what? So the answer for the first one is identity theft and second one is identity fraud. Next one, what are the reasons for identity theft and identity fraud? There are six reasons for identity theft and identity fraud. So what are those reasons? So these are all the reasons. That is typologies. Assumption of identity, theft for border or employment purpose, criminal record identify theft, virtual identity theft, last one is credit identify theft. So these are the six reasons for theft. Last question is, what are the four primary sources of information on identity theft and fraud data? So what are the four information? Government agencies, credit card agencies, software companies, and trade and popular medias. So these are the four primary sources of information. Yes. Thank you. Thank you all.